Hello, and welcome to A Celtic World, a podcast created by Celtic fans all over the world, for Celtic fans all over the world. From Banbridge to Bangkok, from Lennoxtown to Leningrad, you're all very welcome. First of all, apologies, this is a recording. My first attempt at hosting has gone spectacularly well as usual. So apologies for that. So I'm sure you'll enjoy mocking me on Monday when
Not,
Gav's back to do
not
the
at
stuff.
all.
So,
You had the cojones to do it, David. I sat and putting head under the table here while you were.
But listen, fortunately, I'm surrounded by three Celtic World stalwarts to do the heavy lifting. So first of all, I'd like to say a big hello to Paul, our Thursday regular. How are you, Paul?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yeah, it's been an odd week or so as a Celtic fan again. A lot of time, too much off-field stuff taking the focus, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, good to be on.
Excellent. And Brian, with your lovely Stone Roses T-shirt.
Oh yes,
your young
Hank
trendy you. Yep. Love it.
Tribute the late great Manny.
Indeed.
There we go.
And last but certainly not least, we have David One from our Asia CSC. How are you, David?
Doing good. Thanks for having me number 4. I got all my emotions out on Monday, but I might have another go tonight as well. Not sure if I quite got it all out. And I hope my sound, it looks as if it's me that's a sound and breaking up problem, but I'll bear with it as long as you can.
Yeah, well, sadly, as this is recording, we're going to have to just hope that the sound is good as possible. So listen, folks, what we're going to talk about today. We talked on Monday about the AGM. I still think there's a lot of pain, a lot of hurt that we need to cover. There's been new stuff that's come out. Hopefully, we'll get Brother Wilfred on his way. We've got a big month coming up in December with 10 games between now and the end of December. If there's any appetite for talking about Europa League, we can discuss the Feyenoord game. And if there's any time left, then we can perhaps talk about the Hibs game. So before we start, let me just remind people that if you think it's not too-pish, then please like and subscribe, and we promise to do better on Monday. So let's start with the AGM. We had the first of all, I'd like to say to Brian and David and Stephen, I thought Monday's show was fantastic. I thought the emotion that you showed, the knowledge, the commitment to Celtic fans was spectacular. I think it's probably the show that I've enjoyed more than any other show that I've listened to in the last year. So first of all, thank you very much to that. Paul, I'd like to get your views first. We didn't hear from you on Monday. How did you think the AGM went? What went right? What went wrong?
Well, you obviously haven't listened to the tactical review this week because the last 5 minutes was a pretty hefty off-the-cuff rant about the AGM, which a few days down the track, I'm probably not going to be quite as, let's say, passionate and vociferous. I tried very hard to keep the language PG, but I failed. So yeah, if anyone wants my initial reaction, then go back and watch the tactical review, the last sort of 5-10 minutes. You'll get it there. But for anyone that hasn't seen that yet, to answer your question, just an absolute shambles, and summed up everything that's wrong with this board at the minute. I said it on Monday. I'm not taking this criticism of, the shareholders and fans disrupted the meeting and let them off the hook and didn't hold them to account and, shot ourselves in the foot. I'm just not having it. Anyone that thinks that we would have got a straight answer out of the board at a Q&A should it have happened is in cloud cuckoo land as far as I'm concerned. That board came out with absolutely zero intention of getting to questions and answers. And if they had got to some questions and answers, they'd have played us straight back to it. They had the usual videos to try to eat into time. Jeanette Finlay stood up and said, look, we can pass over this. Let's get the meeting moving so we actually get to Q&A. She was told to sit down. Others were told to behave. The chairman's main job as a chairman is to chair the annual general meeting, and he couldn't do that. There are a bunch of butthurt muppets. You know, they knew there was going to be criticism. So some red cards being waved around and some booing and a bit of chanting is the very least they would have expected. Like, corporate boards all over the world at AGMs get rough treatment from shareholders that are unhappy with how things are going. As far as I'm concerned, this was pretty tame given the circumstances. Every single one of those people in that meeting is an owner of the club, and they were treated with absolute disdain and contempt. And the statement by Ross Desmond, or Dermot Desmond, he's effectively his puppet, was an out-and-out attack on all Celtic supporters as far as I'm concerned. I'm not prepared to say it's just the Green Brigade or it's just these people that are causing issues. It was an attack on Celtic supporters, and that's all of us. These guys are supposed to be the custodians of the club. They're not fit to wear the club tie. And I noticed Ross Desmond wearing a club tie when he's got no official position at the club. He was a proxy for his dad. And yeah, the boarder can kit him out however he looked. But his statement was an absolute disgrace. It was designed for a reaction. It got the reaction they wanted. We'd already had a 30-minute adjournment for nothing at that point, with the board saying, oh, by the way, you're not getting those 30 minutes back. The meeting will finish at the requisite time. So everything was orchestrated to finish without questions being answered. And as I said on Monday's show, anyone that thinks that questions were going to get answers is an absolute idiot as far as I'm concerned, because there was a 2.5-hour meeting just a few weeks ago with the fan collective where Mackay and Nicholson sat in a meeting and were asked a bunch of serious questions, and they basically shrugged their shoulders and said, nothing to see here, everything's going dandy. So if you think that a few weeks further on, they're going to suddenly take some accountability and say, oh yeah, actually, let's answer some of these important questions and we'll tell you where, we're sorry we've gone a bit wrong, but we'll fix things and this is how we're going to do it. You're absolutely dreaming. It was as in a season of disasters from the board, including multiple ridiculous statements. This was the cherry on the turd cake, to be honest. Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm sort of sick speaking about it, to be honest. Activity needs to be ramped up, and we need to force change, because these lot have got no respect for the fan base. They've got no respect for the shareholders of the club, and they think it's their plaything to do what they will. Celtic fans have been around for well over 100 years. They will be around for hundreds more beyond these idiots. And the sooner we get changed, the better. But we're going to have to dig in, and it's not going to happen overnight. And there's going to be pain before it's better. But they've shown absolutely no interest in even stepping forward in a conciliatory tone. To play a video that says we need some unity at the club, and then for Ross Desmond to come out with that statement, less than an hour later,
well, Paul,
utterly ridiculous.
Thank you, Paul. I think just to you said to play a video, so I'd like to thank David for sending us a video. The Celtic Collective had issued a statement, basically, where do we go from here? What do we do to keep the complaints going? And one of the messages has been that not a penny more. Now, little did we know that even without Gav here, we've got the creative juices flowing from young David. And I want to just play this video for you.
I gave my hours, I gave my days, pour my soul in a million ways. For what, for who? Not for me, not for you. I chased the sun till the shadows grew, built a castle from the dirt I knew. It crumbled fast, nothing lasts, and now I'm done with the score. Not a ticking bomb. The money's gone. Where's the calm? I'm drained, I'm dry. Empty sky. Your promises like paper thin. Folded lines. Where do I begin? I'm through. I'm out. No more doubt. Not a penny more, not a second less. I'm taking back the rest. Not a penny more,
So excellent. Thank you very much, David. I don't know where you get the inspiration from, but yeah, tell us what was the story behind that. You can see there's been 6 questions in the video. If people were not too busy playing along with the drums solos.
Yeah. So I think certainly Paul, as I know, and maybe yourself, David, but we're involved in the Celtic fan collective more or less from day one. Had lots of engagements with the Celtic Trust, and I've attended meetings over the last couple of years online. So we're very familiar with people who have been leading this campaign, and often out with the main meetings that they have in Baird's Bar or wherever they choose to have their meetings. There's conversations that go on within the WhatsApp group, and trying to deal with the amount of online that comes through, fan reaction, whether or not there's been effectiveness of the campaign. And certainly one of the things that we've recognized is that the boycott of merchandise certainly has had an effect. And also just to encourage people not to be despondent as we see an increase in the sort of trolling of Celtic fans and the very active move by the Celtic board to pigeonhole Celtic fans into various camps so that they cannot be seen as a collective. It's a GB issue. It's a Celtic Trust issue. It's over there. Look over there. It's no us. And we know collectively that's just not the case. So last day or so, the collective came up with a set of questions to ensure that we go out and continue to communicate as a fan media platform to fans so that everybody knows that whatever we're being told is not the truth, which is a deep concern. It's not true. Celtic fans are, I would say, majority united in the attempts to address the issues of the board. So these have brought together these 6 questions that they want to ask. Whether or not they're going to be able to be asked and answered, I don't know. But there's some, I have to assume within there's some advice about what can be asked from a governance of an AGM. And then the other conversation is then, how best do we present this to people so we can put it out on Twitter and so on. And then I saw someone within the group talking about making videos, keeping the momentum going. And that's really the basis of pulling together with the idea of not a penny more as a sort of musical soundtrack, with just the time to read those questions and people understand the continued drive. So that's really the background to it, and pull it together. And I've got some talented friends. I'm not one of them.
Yeah, well, fantastic job. And I think if Gab can get this recording out in the next few days, we could be looking at a Christmas number 1. So I think you better get your Christmas jumpers on, David. And I'm sure Brian will be suitably dressed. I think last time I saw Brian, he had his Joy Division. This week you've got your Stone Roses. But Brian, I want to ask you one of the questions that was raised by the Celtic Collective was, why the fuck was Ross Desmond even saying anything? His dad's only a majority shareholder. His son, it was like, I don't know, was he not allowed late at night and he had to sort of be brought along with his dad and they let him just, sprout nonsense? One of the things also, Brian, is that I watched a podcast called The Reaction, where 3 people had been actually at the AGM. And one of the things I didn't know was that they actually delayed the start of the AGM by 20 minutes. So it's no surprise people were booing, is it?
No, it's a complete lack of, I hate saying, customers. They like to call us customers, we're fans, but just complete lack of respect for the customer fan base, whatever you want to call us. But I just don't want to even demonize the guy. To me, he's nothing. It's like whenever Boris Johnson was in charge, I just thought this man's a complete fool. He should never have been anywhere near it. However, I believe it was an orchestrate. It was set up to fail. However, it's only made us stronger. We are stronger, and I will not get one more penny out of me for anything, and I don't want to see any of these charlatans making any kind of money. And personally speaking, I was contemplating not going down the route of MK Dons Wimbledon, but while those guys are in charge, I not be back at the park. I don't want anything to do with them, and I'm happy to sit out, and I'll always support the team. I'll always support the team. I bleed green and white, but those guys, there needs to be a revolution. How it comes, I don't know, but wherever it takes, boycotts, you name it, I'm behind it. Because if we look back to the likes of COVID and all this, and the false narratives and all the bullshit, we're being gaslit. The bottom line, excuse my French, we are being gaslit about different things. And as far as I'm concerned, you support Celtic. I don't care whether you're a millionaire or you're having 2D. We're all a family. And the guy back the Green Brigade, I back the boys, I back the North Curve, whatever they do. And it's something I was listening to a podcast with the homeboys there, Jason Higgins, and Jason was saying that, the treatment of those young people was an absolute disgrace, the way they knocked their doors down and come out. And it was for a breach of the peace. And I think something like Celtic are the only club in Britain, and I hate saying Britain because I'm Irish, that has any issues with fans. And you look at that mob across the road, they embrace the union bears, and they embrace and they have dialogue, and they're almost taking the piss, excuse my friends, taking the piss out of us at the minute because we're so bad. I would rather have the Rangers board in place because at least they react, they do something than ours. Anti-establishment, I needn't say any more. We are in bed with Police Scotland. We're in bed with the Tory party. It's not the club I grew up loving, being the outsider. But we have to stick together and we have to force change. And if it's boycotting, they're not turning up. Now, Celtic Park will never be empty. They'll always have 20, 30,000 people minimum. But that's the only way. I would love to see us get down to like £1 million in the bank and not being able to buy players and have an identity and try and claw it back somehow. But these guys, they're just they're Trumpian, they're the elite, whatever you want to call them, and we're just scum of the earth as far as they're concerned. We're certainly not more than a club at the minute. We're less than a club at the minute with these guys at the helm. And apologies for the rant.
Not at all. No, I think it's clear the the feelings, the sentiments that all the Celtic fans feel. I think it's a massive challenge because no Celtic fan wants us to lose a game. We all want to see our success in the field. Support the team, sack the board. I think it's been the clear message from the start, but it's so difficult. We can talk about the Europa League games later when they're charging us £45 a ticket. But listen, let's. I think we should move on.
The one thing I'd say, David, in challenge Brian's point slightly, and I get the sentiment, but I don't think boycott's the way forward. Certainly not at the minute. Like the one major problem the Celtic fan collective's got at the minute is, despite the fact it represents a big chunk of the fans, it hasn't got the full fan base on board. The fan base is probably more fractured than it's been for ages, and it's, if anything, we're losing a bit of momentum. So we actually need to do things like the video, the questions. But I'd gone even more back to basics. I'd gone back to the 7 questions that the fan collective started themselves on. And I'd be reiterating that, like, Ashes have started here, line and length, bang it in the same spot again and again and again and again, and you take wickets. We need to reiterate the message that why the fan collective started, those 7 questions, drill that again and again, not deviate off that. I feel like we've got dragged into a lot of other stuff that it's part of it, but it shouldn't be the main focus. We've sort of, the Green Brigade is a big issue, and the treatment of them, it's like a whole separate story, but that's starting to become the story. And we all know, I love the Green Brigade, but we all know the Green Brigade is a topic that splits some of the fan base. So instead of getting distracted off, or that's what the board want. The board want to make it about the Green Brigade or the Celtic Trust or Jeanette Finlay. They want to make it about people and personalities and all that. That's not what the Celtic Fan Collective set out to do. The Celtic Fan Collective set out to ask 7 questions to the board and hold them to account. And I think if we drill that back to basics, drill that 7 questions on all medias, in the stadium, on more of the banners, make life uncomfortable. I think we're better off being in the stadium, making life uncomfortable for the board pre and post match, and backing the team to the absolute hilt during games. And I think it's boycott. People rush to boycott because they think that's an extreme measure and therefore it'll get a faster result. I don't think it will. You're not going to, we're not, as much as the not another penny campaign is great, and it is working. We know it's working because there's a Black Friday sale with 20% off, Green Friday sale with 20% off all over our feeds at the minute. And we know that revenue's down. But sitting on £77 million, they're not going to get starved out of money anytime soon. So I think boycotts is well down the line. I think you need to bring more of the support together, get everybody on board with the 7 key points, what we're all pushing for. So I don't think there's many Celtic fans that would disagree with those 7 main points. Start making it about the trust, start making it about Green Brigade, which is what the fans want, what the board want us to do. You divide the support and it's easy to, divide and conquer. So I think get back to the main focus, get that message out repeatedly, game after game, week after week. And ask them difficult questions about governance, because there was a good suggestion on the media chat group the other day, which was the collective should work towards a blueprint of what the future should look like, because obviously the board's not going to do it, and then just present it and say, here's a viable proposal. What are you going to do about it? It's actually holding them to account and showing them up for the stuff they aren't doing that will get the fan base, greater amounts of the fan base on board, so that you've got one, consistent kind of a feel and motion, if you like, for the whole fan base. Because at the minute, you go into any chat group, any fan page on social media, and there is a diverse view of opinion, a massive diverse view of opinion. So we need to bring more people into the tent instead of having more people splitting out.
Right. I agree 100%, Paul. I think that one of the things that was clear in the AGM was that one of the agenda items was what is the plan for the next 5 years, and we didn't get to hear it. All we got was post AGM that the board had been unanimously reinstated by a 99% majority, which was statistics that I think would have been would have made the North Korea head plush.
Exactly. But one last point on this. I don't need to see a 100-page blueprint from the board saying this is the 5-year plan. I just need to know that there is a 5-year plan. And it's trying to head in the direction that makes us better, which, as far as anyone is aware, because the communication from the club is so poor, who knows what their plan is, if any. And that's the concern. The concern is there's no real planning. We launch from one window to another. And you've got other clubs out there talking about 100-year plans. Midtjylland talking about, they had a 5-year plan. The next plan might be a 25-year plan. It might be a 30-year plan. The owner's going, maybe it's a 100-year plan. Maybe it's that. Maybe that's what at least that's what other clubs are doing. They're thinking about the future and and even if it's ambitious, I don't mind a massively ambitious plan that maybe doesn't quite achieve what it set out to. Because if it's ambitious and you get pretty close, you've done a lot better than you'll be doing currently without a plan. So, yeah, we're a mile off that at the minute. So you need to turn up the heat, turn up the pressure, and hold them to account.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Listen, from my point of view, the only plan we've got is to stay kind of a ball hair ahead of the Rangers, which has been set us back for forever. I keep ranting on about how we were so close to taking Bayern Munich less than a year ago, and look at where we are now.
Feels a long time ago, right?
But where we are now, and where we're hopefully by this time tomorrow or the weekend, we're hoping that we might have a new manager. So supposedly we've got Wilfried Nancy, who's on his way over. David, tell me, what do you know about him? What do you think about him? Good signing, potentially?
The most other, yeah, I mean, he's had a background in French football. Did his parents, because I took this from an interview that he did with the MLS podcast, which really impressed me about his approach, his articulation, his intelligence struck me as well, and a bit of steel about the guy. His motto is courage, right? So at an early age, he went traveling and experienced other cultures, as he says, and that shaped his approach to his managerial style, and was talking about the need to understand people at their level in such a way as to communicate his ideas to them. And that seems to be one of the things that he's successful with, is having the ability to change tactics and then communicate to players in such a way they can carry it out, right? And that's been a bit like, maybe even we could say that in the last few games, maybe Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney have actually done a bit of that. We sort of, previous managers, it was, if plan A is not working, do plan A a bit more. That's the plan B. He knows from this interview, he knows a lot of well-known characters within football, has worked with a few of them as well. He's worked his way up, actually, through, I think, beginning in the ladies, the 14 and up, I think, which he said in its own way had, challenges to be able to communicate. In fact, he almost didn't do it because he said, how am I going to communicate to these 14-year-old players? I think I was just very impressed with the way in which he could articulate his thoughts of the game and himself and what that would mean for players and the club. I watched the North America show this morning, and those guys were looking at the communication that had been taking place with his current team, and they were saying that the fans don't want him to go. Now, that's surely a very good sign, isn't it, when the fans themselves don't want the manager to go. So it will be very interesting. I think the only thing that I would say, and this is going to not be quite so positive, I'm so cynical of this board that all of this chat around him, I wouldn't even put it them to just detract from, put out the rumours and stuff to detract from the post-AGM events. But I'm hoping not. He gets a big positive from me. I would love to see him join.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Well, want him to be successful. And Brian, what do you know about him? I mean, the only thing I really know about him, I saw a video on Sky today where they had a guy who kind of looked like Groucho Marx being touted as the sort of the American soccer expert. But according to this guy, Nancy is the next best thing. What do you reckon, Brian?
I'm sort of cautious, and I've got the Eddie Howe jacket on, and until he's paraded at the park, I'm trying not to get sucked in, because I did all that with Eddie Howe, and I think didn't we have a guy on from Bournemouth, I think, or maybe it was Hamish or somebody, but he looks like a good guy. I like the fact that he's quite ballsy. He believes in the inner sanctum of the changing room, and he's stood up to directors, and maybe that's something in Brendan's, not defence, but maybe he could have stood up to them a bit better. I remember Ange saying before, we need players in, maybe I should be speaking to the directors a lot more. Maybe I haven't been loud enough. But I think he's the kind of guy that he is certainly very, very highly rated. I think the goal difference from the teams is something like plus 85 for Columbus Crew for last season, which is fantastic return on terms of goals. But I'm liking the fact that if he does come in, he's going to bring his own people. So he's not having to work with Gavin Strachan or Stevie Woods or whoever's. John Kennedy, obviously he's gone, but till he's there, I like the guy. I like the fact that he's up and coming. I like the fact that he's won things. He's got a lot of connections. Henri. I'm not saying we're going to bring in the next Moussa Dembele or anything like that, but till it happens, once he's in place, he'll get my 100% backing. And I think he's got he's got his own way of playing. He's got his own style, and I just wish him well. But we need about 5 or 6 players in to put 11 on the pitch at the minute. We're that short. I'm looking at the injuries: AJ, CCV, Jota, Osmond, Iheanacho, Sarachi. Apologies if I missed anybody, but wish him well, and that's my kind of thing till he's in the park. I'll not speculate. Yeah,
cheers, Brian. And in terms of the goal difference, I had seen different figures. I had seen that I think last season they drew or lost more games than they won. I thought they'd only scored less than 2 goals a game and conceded about 1.5. Maybe I've
you know me, David. I've been wrong before. I've been wrong before.
I can assure you, I can usually beat you in being wrong. But yeah, the other thing, Paul, I wanted to bring up was that I had read on social media that there's a rumor that they would be bringing someone in, an ex-Celtic link. Don't know, ex-player, ex-manager. Or are we talking about Sean Maloney? Are we talking about John Kennedy coming back? Any hot gossip for us, Paul?
No gossip. I think it's a good idea to have somebody local on, as long as it's not forced upon the manager. As long as it's his pick or he's happy to go with it. I think the obvious candidates are somebody that's already there. The most obvious candidate is probably a promotion for Sean Maloney. Then you've got some continuity between what's been going on for the last few weeks and what's about to come. And Maloney's a respected coach, right? Nobody wants him as the manager, but he's a respected coach. He's worked under some really good managers previously. And look, let's be in no doubt, Sean Maloney has been running the football side for Celtic since him and O'Neill came in. O'Neill never took training when he was there the first time. It was Steve Walford and John Robertson that took training on a daily basis. He was rarely even on the park. Like he was quite often in the office, and then he was more of a kind of motivator and a sort of encourage a man manager, if you want, for want of a better word. And the tactical stuff, he was involved in the tactical stuff back then, but I think the majority of the tactical stuff will have been led by Sean Maloney over the last few weeks. So it made sense to shield Maloney from all the shit that's going on and have a figurehead like O'Neill in. And yeah, he probably did the rallying call before and after matches and stuff, but certainly the day-to-day training would have been all run by Maloney and mostly set out by Maloney, I would say. They probably spoke together about tactical sort of styles, and really they haven't tweaked that much. They've played a similar formation and got the ball forward a bit faster is pretty much all that's happened. It looked like they were going to tweak it more at the beginning where Engels played deeper, and it looked like they were going to play a double pivot, and I was quite excited about that. I've been advocating for that with the squad for months, and in that first game they played that, and I think it made a real difference because I think Engels is better from a deeper position because he plays forward passes excellently. So yeah, I if I had to bet that if there was a coach to stay on, I would say it probably could well be Sean Maloney. I've got no real issues with that. And despite the Stevie Woods dig, I don't think there's anything wrong with Stevie Woods as a goalkeeping coach. We've consistently had good keepers, and he's been a key part of running that goalkeeping school. So I'm quite happy if Stevie Woods stays on as well. I think, as far as Nancy's concerned, unlike Brian, I think it's a done deal. I think it's been a done deal for a while. If you believe the rumours, then his compensation drops significantly on the 1st of December, and that's got our board written all over it. Mm-hmm. So that'll be, I believe that to be the case. I think one of the other delays is just how many of the coaching group come. I think this right-hand man is still up in the air. Is he coming, or is he basically getting the gig when Nancy goes? But it sounds like 3 or 4 of them are coming, including the analytics guy. And from what I read from guys locally, he's an excellent analytics guy, and it would almost be by default, because the incoming manager is bringing his own analytics guy, that we suddenly look like we're going to do a bit more with analytics, which we've all been crying out for. So look, I like his profile. There's reservations and risk with any managerial appointment. I think for me, I think that the challenges are dealing with his board and getting who you want to get is probably his biggest stumbling block. He wouldn't have played against a low block in the style we see regularly here. And he does concede, his teams do concede a lot of goals. They score a lot of goals, but they concede a lot of goals too. So bedding in a new formation, a new manager at a critical point in the season is fraught with risk. It is fraught with danger. And I think the saving grace is that Rangers aren't really fully up and running yet. Hearts have started to drop points. Bedding in a new manager will probably continue to drop points, especially while we're light on players. So there's risk, absolute risk here. But I think for the type of manager that's going to come to Celtic, especially with all the background noise that's going on at the minute and the kind of mess from a managerial or from a board infrastructure point of view, there's a lot of managers that wouldn't touch this with a barge pole. Nancy, like any sort of up and coming player worth his salt, it will be coming in an attempt to use us as a stepping stone, as Ange did and as others will do in the future. And look, we all know that's where we kind of sit, right? If a manager is using us as a stepping stone and leaves after 2 or 3 years, he's probably done pretty well, because he won't be, if he's leaving 2 or 3 years to go to another league, it'll be a better league and he'll have done a good job for us. So yeah, I think there's huge challenges, but so a lot of the criticism being thrown at him is completely invalid. The 4 years as a manager, I don't care. He's nearly 20 years as a coach. I think 2006 when he first took that coaching gig on. He's worked his way from the bottom. He scrapped to get himself done. He didn't have a particularly flashy professional career. A lot of players that had a flashy professional career get handed managerial gigs well before they're ready for them, and they don't deserve them and they don't come up to scratch. So I'd much rather a guy that sort of has worked hard and done his dues. He got opportunity because during COVID, Henry wanted to go back with his family and didn't want to be locked out and all of that stuff. So that was his opening. But to be honest, if you're like I look at my brother, and my brother's a professional coach, but he's not been able to get like a top level breakthrough gig. He's had to go to the States. He's now at Aloha. Like he's because if you're not played the game at a professional level, it's really hard, a high level professional, it's really hard to get your gig. So, I respect where he's come from. I respect that he's got his own sort of style. He's won things. He's been to the equivalent of the Champions League in North America. So, and look, let's be honest, whatever you think of the MLS, it's a much better league than the Scottish Premier League. So he's been tested, but he's also been hamstrung by salary caps and the draft and how that whole American process works. He'll be coming to a club, even with the mess we're in, with a massive budget compared to his local competitors. And I imagine the board, and give them a little bit of credit for this, I imagine they're looking at an appointment from a different jurisdiction in the hope that it does the same thing as the Ange appointment did. He's got knowledge and access of players from other areas, and hopefully he'll be able to bring some of those with him.
Yeah, no, hopefully. I love your optimism about how the board are looking at these things. I saw somewhere else that when he was in the MLS, he was the lowest paid manager. I'm wondering if he was seen as a potentially kind of cheap option. But
I don't know that's part of it as well. Like they'll let's be honest, they'll weigh up plenty of things, and cost will always be one for that board. But no, there was a lot of people didn't fancy Ange. Obviously, I had the benefit of a bit of Aussie knowledge and thought he'd be a decent appointment. But even I was a little bit unsure that if he'd be able to translate that quite as well as he did. And I think that you've got that same challenge. Is he going to be able to switch across? But I do think that his knowledge of the North American market means that we will, and that'll appeal to the board because you'll get better players for a cheaper price. That's what Ange brought as well. You got bargains from Japan that were much, much cheaper than they should have been because there was some local knowledge. So this board are a terrible board, but if there's one thing, they're cheap and they're tight and they've seen it work once, and I think they're probably hoping it can work again.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about sort of getting value for money. The guy on Sky News this morning seemed to think you won't get any decent players from the MLS for less than £10 million. I think that reflects what you say, Paul, the fact that it is a higher level league than what we've got. So you've got the average player is better. I think they've got a Uruguayan striker that probably cost the best part of 10 million, or their best player Rossi or something. I think hopefully, let's first of all hopefully hope that we're getting the guy. But moving on, if we do get him, he has 10 games before the transfer window opens. So 10 games between now and the 31st of December. I think we can all forget the Europa League. I don't think any of us have got any particular enthusiasm for that. We obviously want to win the League Cup, but then we've got 7 league games. So David, bearing in mind to use Stephen's word, the paucity of our squad, who are the big players that need to step up in the next 10 games?
I think that's going to be our biggest issue, simply that our bench is weak. There's been some squad rotation, Martin Neal and Sean Maloney in charge, and I'm wondering what team will go out tonight and whether or not they will consider not putting out the strongest of teams. That's a huge, I know straight away everybody will say huge risk in a Europa game, but maybe they might consider, well, let's try and get through this and then focus on the league and our cup. I think in most Celtic fans' mind, there isn't a great expectation on the match tonight. I think that's fair. You never know whether or not we might be able to come with a result. But I think that number of games leading into, I always had it that our best, one of our best advantages over other teams was the fact that we had a depth of squad through the Scottish winter. And I had always felt that if teams went in front of us, Hearts or Aberdeen, from time to time, either tactically in the quality of their players they'd mess up, they just would. But also just the number of games would tire them all, and that we could take. I don't think that we're quite in that position. As Paul has said as well, that if we have a new manager coming in, then there's going to have to be some stability through Sean Maloney, I would suggest. And I agree with Paul. I think that Sean Maloney does a great job, and the coaching side has good relationships with the players. So there's that. But until January, and everybody knows January is a very difficult window in and of itself to bring players in. I think the manager, whoever it is, would have a job in his hands. Clearly, Martin O'Neill says this is my last game. I think he did say Europe in charge, so he has a feeling that he won't be around. I don't know whether he meant that just purely for Europe or was suggesting more. But yeah, I think it's a challenge in running. I think it's a real challenge in running. We should just about edge it, I think. Am I worried that the league will run away from us? I'm not yet. But Europe, for me, I have to say I've given up on it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, listen, David. I think probably there's not much interest in talking about the Europa, but what I'd like to concentrate for a bit of what's left of the programme, and what do we do? How do we get as many out of the 21 points available to us in the league? How do we make sure that we beat St Mirren, in the League Cup? I'm going to horseshoe Callum McGregor as one of the pivotal players that has stepped up recently in the semi-final. He stepped up last weekend with his Thunder Bastard. And also want to take this opportunity to play one of Gav's songs. Bear with me, it's only half a minute.
His name is Callum McGregor, and he loves the Celtic forever. Yes, it's Callum McGregor. He picks up trebles like waves wash up pebbles in Mallorca. He'll manage us.
I don't know whether we agree that's mercifully short, or whether it deserves 3 or 4 more verses of it. But yeah, so Gav is still here in spirit, shouting behind the scenes about
the only disappointment about us not being live on this show is the absolute multitude of pros and cons to the sing song. But yeah, that's what started us. Nice to have a little bit of levity at a time when things are a bit serious. Yeah, it's a tough run. I'm still, look, it's not my priority, but I'm still interested in us having a good account of ourselves in the Europa League. We're not going to spend much time on it, but Feyenoord are an absolute shambles at the moment. Certainly on the pitch, more of a shambles than we are. And Robin van Persie could lose his job if we win this game tonight. So his job's probably going to be safe for another few days. But if you ask anyone to prioritize today or Hibs, everybody's going to pick Hibs, right? Nobody's going to pick this. But that shows where we've sort of stumbled to in the last few months. We should be always aiming at Europe, the highest level of Europe. We win and compete there, and everything else should take care of itself. But we've got such a mess with a lack of provision in the squad and the injuries, which, look, let's be honest, the injuries have come because we didn't have enough strength and depth. You go back to the well to the same players, obviously they're going to get injured. there is a little bit of light in the tunnel. I think Iniacho and Sriracha aren't too far away. I think this weekend might come too quickly for him, but I think the cup final is probably an aim for them, if not the Hearts game the week before. So at least there'll be a few more bodies around. Their injuries, as far as I'm aware, aren't as bad as certainly, obviously, the headline injuries. But yeah, I think we're going to have to rotate the squad a little bit. Like, you look at a guy like Paulo Bernardo. What is the crack there? Like, he's arguably getting less. He's probably getting less game time under Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney than he did under Brendan Rodgers. Like, is he just got the worst farts in the world, or like, what's he been doing to warrant this? And like this, for me, this isn't an element of, you know, a player. Like, there's always that element of the longer a player sits on the bench, the better they become and what they can add. But Paulo Bernardo has contributed on the pitch for us lots of times. Like, he's played well in derbies, he's played well in Europe. He had a game at St Mirren last season, maybe, or the season before, and he played an absolute blinder, made an assist. So he's clearly got talent. I don't know, like,
is it application, Paul? Maybe.
I don't think you get to become the under-23 captain of Portugal if you've got a lack of application. I really don't. That's a country that's got star-studded players through its main squad. I'm not expecting that their under-23 squad is lacking in talent as well. So to become the skipper of that squad, I do not believe that there's a lack of application, but there's obviously something that's in there. I wonder if maybe he's got a bit of a nagging injury that's just not quite enough to keep him out of squads, but not quite enough to trust him with long minutes. But yeah, we've got to start rotating players. But the problem is the players like McCowan comes on at halftime, and I thought he was poor the other night. Balikwisha is further down the pecking order than Yang, which tells you a lot. It's concerning. But equally, I don't think Balikwisha's a winger. He's another player that's been a square peg in a round hole. Like, Engels has been played out of position as far as I'm concerned. He needs to play deeper or wider. And then, you know, I think Negrin and Balikwisha, potentially their best positions are a 10. We don't have a 10. So hopefully Nonsies plays a 10, because then maybe we'll find some of these players to get some minutes. But yeah, I just think we've got to try and utilize the squad a little bit differently and share out the workload. Because if you don't, you just on a hiding to nothing. There'll be more injuries.
Can you imagine Paul if we lost Carl? You know, that's
you lose Carl, you lose, like, we're down to the bare bones at centre back, but
Scales and Carl.
Brian, I was going to mention to you, Brian, that you know, in terms of, you know, what the options that we have available. As I say, I don't really want to talk too much about the Feyenoord game tonight. Will you be watching it? I mean, the time, at least from Bangkok, I think it's about 1:45 in the morning. I'll probably miss.
I feel obliged to watch the games because I know Paul and you get the Davids and I don't know what the plural of David is, David, or who knows. You guys have to watch it at criminal times, so yeah, I'll watch the game. I've got no expectations at all. My only thing is I would love a 0-0 and no injuries. You know, I'm not saying I would love a 0-0. I love it 1-0, 2-0, but I just want to come through without any.
There's still a requirement to get points and coefficient points, right? Like, we know, you know, the coefficient is, you know, secondary, but it's been a terrible year for the Scottish coefficient. Like, we've been pretty dreadful. The other lot have been even worse, and other teams didn't even get into the group stage. So we know we're already going backwards in Europe over the next 4 years. So anything we can, even if we don't qualify from the group, and I still think there's a bit of a chance to get out of this group. Like, I genuinely think there is a possibility of getting out. We might be a scraping it. But a night like that, like, originally I'd have taken a draw, and I still would take a draw. But with Feyenoord on the ropes, you've actually got a reasonably good opportunity of trying to scrape a win over there. And I think that's what you've got to go and do. But yeah, you've got to go and try and get as many points as you can in that. And but your second point is probably more important: no injuries, because I don't think we can afford too many more.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, listen. Let's hope the score goes our way. I don't know anything about the Feyenoord team. I know that obviously strong links with Celtic in the past, with the likes of Henrik and Wim Janssen, etc. Who played for them. The only player that I saw from their squad is a guy called Leo Sayer. So one for the teenagers there.
Please no, don't be giving
Yeah,
Gav any ideas.
yeah, I can see the headlines tomorrow. You make me feel like Gavin. But yeah, let's hope Leo Sayer's not on the back pages tomorrow. Listen, I don't know. Is it should we call it a day? Is there any? Should we maybe have a quick chat about the Hibs preview?
I think as far as Hibs go, like they've had a bit of a wobble, but that's a tough it's a tough test to go to Easter Road. So I think you've just got to try like another St Mirren, like by any means necessary. 3 points is all that matters. Get in, get out. So yeah, I think you play. I'd actually rotate the squad tonight. I'd play guys like Paulo Bernardo and Balak Wisha. Look, we've spent money on these guys. They're reasonably, they've come from decent leagues and decent pedigrees. I'd rotate the squad a little bit. It's not too much you can rotate. You're gonna have to go, but then I'd play your absolute strongest side that you can on Sunday. For me, the best thing about Sunday is it's an 8 o'clock kickoff locally, so it means I don't have to be up all hours of the night. Lunchtime kickoffs are few and far between for us at the minute. I won't be getting up at 1:45 or 1:45 or whatever time it is. I'll get up about 5ish and watch it on delay without knowing the score and watch it as live. But I still think that's a reasonable effort given where we're at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. And Brian, in terms of the way that at least Hearts hopefully are in a bit of free fall. I don't know if you saw the Aberdeen game or highlights of the Aberdeen game a few days ago, where in reference to your favourite band, Joy Division, Aberdeen were singing "Hearts are falling apart again."
Again, brilliant. Yeah.
So I did think about you when that song came on, but let's hope that for me, the Hibs game takes importance over.
But tell me this, guys, we just take a punt on Kieran Boy. I think he'd be a tremendous player for us. From is it Kieran Boy, Paul, from Hibs?
Yeah. It is. Yeah, I think it depends how much they'd want for him. I think the problem with Scottish talent is I imagine he's got a reasonable length on his contract. There was heavy rumor he was going to be the striking saviour at the last minute at the end of the window, and I don't disagree that was probably a plan. I imagine it fell through on costs. If I had to speculate and guess, we've obviously missed out on other targets, or maybe Rodgers just said, "You're having a laugh. I'm not having him." David Watson's the player locally that I'd be after. I know that the other lot have been linked with him, but David Watson at Killie is a cracking player. Still young, really young, 22, 23, and showed up against Celtic and Rangers multiple times. And I think it's a player you could develop. I think if somebody like McCowan at 26, 27 is worth buying, I absolutely think somebody like David Watson's worth adding to the squad. I'm not saying that's the benchmark and level for all signings, but it's a player that you could add to the squad. The midfield is going to turn over, right? So guys like Rayo aren't going to be around for too much longer. If Bernardo doesn't take a chance or be given a chance, he's probably going to go as well. So there's room for the midfield to be added to, and I think David Watson's got a lot in his locker that you could develop with, especially under a good coach.
Yeah, we saw that. We talked about this last year. We were hoping that Lennon Miller might be the one to step up as the midfield gets refreshed. David, what's your views? Who should we be buying in the transfer window? once we've got our 21 points out of 21 between now and the end of December.
Whoever we're lucky enough to get, because the January transfer window is a tough one, right? Well, I would probably consider, given that I don't think we're going to do much in Europe, it might be worth just getting some journey that just allows us to, rest players on occasion. It would be a difficult job for a manager to come in and actually do some strategic purchases to set up for another one seasons in January. It will be tough. So for me, if we can just strengthen the squad purely from a get through the season, rest some players, I think that would be good enough.
I think that's not the worst strategy, but I think given where Nancy's coming from and their season is done, I think he's probably going to be trying to take talent, same as Ange did. The Japanese season was finished shortly after he arrived, and that's when Maeda and Rio and I think Ideguchi came then as well. So yeah, like there's an opportunity to take players that are, if not out of contract, then certainly at end of season, so it's not less disruptive for teams. And I take the point of yours, David, earlier on that the best talent is 10 million plus, but those are the marquee players. There's bound to be talent at that next level, local talent, North American players, Mexican players that are in there that are flying under the radar. And if you are seeing them week in, week out, and you're running an analytics model, there'll be value to be had there. And there's talk of, is that a Palestinian striker that plays there? There's talk of him. So yeah, I expect that if it is Nancy, I expect there's been some discussion about what happens in January and how much money will be made available, and he will have had a rough idea of what he can do with that, with the market that he's aware of. So yeah, I think we'll probably see a one or two coming from North America, and probably a couple of loans as a bare minimum to flesh out the squad, and either be that sort of stopgap to get us over the line till the end of the season, or potentially be loans with an option to buy if they're a bigger prospect than that. But we'll see. There's a lot of football and a lot to happen between then and now.
For sure. Listen, lads, I think let's call it a day. And folks, once you get the chance to listen to this recording, we're not usually this disorganized. I hope you will like and subscribe. We're on twice on a Monday. We're on a Thursday. We've got the North American podcast. So we're expecting Gavin back in the house on Monday. So it'll be a well-run ship. Hopefully by that time we've had a good victory against Feyenoord, and we've managed to beat Hibs. So listen, folks, thanks very much once again, and thanks to Paul, to David, to Brian for carrying the heavy load today. So
thank you, folks. David. Hail, everybody.
Hail. Cheers, guys.
Hail.